playing the race card. Morgan Tsvangirai became the head of the MDC and the darling of the British media and a champion of democracy. Morgan Tsvangirai. Morgan Tsvangirai characterized the war veterans as lawless thugs and insisted that if he was the Prime Minister, he would evict those occupying the farms, that the white farmers who chose to give up their farms must be compensated. He accused that the black Zimbabweans who were now receiving land were mostly corrupt ZANU-PF government officials and Mugabe cronies, and he regularly called for the arrest and prosecution of Robert Mugabe. This is, when they pay you and they take care of you and they give you a position, you got to talk the talk. In reality, of the 12 million or so hectares of arable and fertile land, Robert Mugabe and the people of Zimbabwe the black people of Zimbabwe, were only saying that 4,000 white farmers cannot continue to control the totality of that land and must relinquish at least 5 million hectares back to the masses of the people. 12 million. And they're calling, look, give us at least 5 million of our own land. You can keep the lion's share. And that still was too much for these satanic demons. The media called what the war veterans are doing a government-backed land grab. These are the language that they use in the papers. And it's very emotive. They're just grabbing land. They're just grabbing land. Not ever explaining that the land is theirs in the first place. But as usual, the greed of the white man knows no bounds, and he refused to concede to land reform while continuing to use propaganda and lies to attempt to justify the unjustifiable. Some of the white farmers even went so far as to claim that the issue was not even about the land, but that the so-called intimidation of the white farmers was just a tactic used by Robert Mugabe to get votes for ZANU-PF. This is how shallow Robert Mugabe is supposed to be. He's not even really interested in land. It's just to get votes. Sick people. Sick people. Robert Mugabe was mocked and vilified because he dared to highlight the practice of homosexuality in Britain and the fact that the Blair government was intent on forcing Zimbabwe to accept it as normal behavior, and he refused. One of the things that Robert Mugabe said was, you came to Africa teaching us Christianity and moral standards. Now you've degenerated into homosexuality practices, and we're saying, as your children who you taught Christianity and these moral values, that we're not accepting it, but now you're trying to force it onto us. And Robert Mugabe asked the question, what's going on? What's happened to you? Because you told us that this was wrong. Because he was brought up as a Catholic. By the time the year 2000 came around, the propaganda, economic and political war was on with Britain, America, and the rest of their European allies. From mainland Europe to Australia, they all formed a united front and ganged up on Zimbabwe to bring Robert Mugabe and his government to its knees. With the imposition of economic sanctions, travel bans on certain government officials, and a relentless negative global media campaign. This is the attack that they launched on Robert Mugabe and Zimbabwe. The Zimbabwean economy went into free fall, and inflation spiraled out of control, and the masses of the people of Zimbabwe began to suffer. At the same time, the AIDS virus was also devastating Zimbabwe. I went to Zimbabwe during the 90s, and I guess everybody here has been to a graveyard at some time or another in your life, a cemetery.
Yes, sir.
And when you go to the average cemetery in this country, you might see 3, 4, 5. You might, I mean, I've never seen that many. I think the most I've seen is maybe 3 or 4 funerals taking place at the same time within the graveyard, within the totality of that cemetery, As God is my witness, when we were in Zimbabwe, it looked like there were hundreds. And the person from ZANU-PF who was escorting us and showing us around, they said that it's like this every day. And the vast majority of the coffins were small ones, children that were dying. And they're saying that's how the people are dying like this. And most of they're dying of AIDS. Because that was one of the nations that was targeted big time with the AIDS virus. And all of this was going on at the same time when these sanctions were on the country and the boycotts and so on and so forth. And the people were really suffering. And if you don't understand why they do these things, they do this in order to get the population to turn against its leadership. And that's why you hear during that time all this talk that Mugabe is starving his own people. Mugabe is punishing his own people. Mugabe is hurting his own people. Mugabe has wrecked the economy. When in reality, it's them who are doing it to the country in order to get the population to turn against their own leader, either overthrow them or remove them from office so that they can put in their new puppet, Morgan Shangarai. This is how the leopard never changes his spots. His mode of operation is always the same. He has done this in countless countries on this planet and around this world. This is how he operates. And the language is always the same. The leader is the one who is targeting his own people, hurting his own people. Like this man who went into the bush and fought against apartheid, who went to prison for 11 years and suffered on behalf of his people. When now that he's in power, he turns around now and decides, let me just kill my own people. Sick. Food production was severely impacted, and as a result, there were some shortages leading to episodes of famine. The plan of the enemy was that opposition to Robert Mugabe and the government would grow and he would be overthrown or removed from office violently or otherwise. Doesn't matter to them how it's done. Despite their plans, brothers and sisters, despite all of their machinations, Robert Mugabe was re-elected in 2002, he was re-elected in 2008, and he was re-elected in 2013, while the MDC, the British government and the media cried foul and accused Robert Mugabe of rigging the elections while perpetrating every other evil and violent act under the sun, because surrounding those elections, that was the media campaign and the talk, that these elections were rigged, they were, fraudulent, MDC activists and supporters were being beaten up, they were being imprisoned, they were being murdered, etc., etc. And by the way, every time they would show you footage from Zimbabwe, they'd often show you a bush. The image of Africa, where when you go to Harare, the capital of Zimbabwe, it rivals London in terms of buildings, and in terms of cleanliness, it's cleaner than London. You understand? And when you see some of the suburbs and the places in Zimbabwe, it's such a beautiful place, but the way they would depict it, like these poor little Africans with flies around their noses and flies around their mouths and flies around their eyes in a bush.
That's right.
These are some wicked demons, man. When we went, they warned us that we had to take our own food because it was so bad there. It was the food shortage. Nothing could be further from the truth. It was a damn lie. And when we went there, the Zimbabwean people that we met, they were so enterprising, so upright, so strong, so resilient, and they were in love with their president. And we went and we visited a white farm, and we met this white farmer, and the white farmer said to us, "Mugabe is my president." And he showed us his little white son playing around in the dirt on the farm, and he said, "My grandfather was born and died here. I'm born and I'm gonna die here, and my son," he pointed to his little white son, he's gonna die here. We're not going anywhere. He says, "I sleep very well at night. My front door is left open. I feel safe." So a lot of that stuff that was going on, it was all machinations, it was all maneuvering by certain forces to try to create an environment of hatred for the government and for the leader of the government and for that system that had come about as a result of the end of apartheid and white supremacy.